The planet Zifara hung in the darkness of space like a jewel, glowing with pale blue light. Its cities were built high into jagged crystal cliffs with bridges and towers connecting them like veins of shining metal. To outsiders, Zifara seemed beautiful and perfect, but beneath the surface it was a world cautious of strangers. The Zifarans had lived in isolation for centuries, trusting few and fearing even more. Liara, one of Zifara's elite diplomats and warriors, stood on the observation platform overlooking the capital city. Her tall frame and silver-hued armor made her look both elegant and intimidating. She had trained her whole life to maintain composure, to trust only herself and her people. Humans, she had been told, were reckless, emotional, and unpredictable. Liara had no desire to learn otherwise. Incoming vessel, a technician called from the control panel beside her. The alert made Liara turn sharply. On the viewport, a sleek gray ship moved toward the planet's atmosphere. Unlike Zifaran ships, which were graceful and crystalline, this human vessel seemed almost clunky. Its metal hull reflected the stars as it glided closer. Liara's lips pressed into a thin line. She had expected diplomats from other alien worlds, but humans. She shook her head slightly. She did not trust them. Not yet. The ship landed in the designated docking bay. Doors hissed open and a team of humans stepped out. Their uniforms were simple but functional, and their expressions were serious. Liara observed each one carefully, her violet eyes scanning for any sign of deceit or weakness. Then she saw him. Captain Ethan Cross walked forward with calm confidence. He carried no weapons in his hands, yet his presence felt commanding. His movements were precise, and every step he took seemed measured. Liara's first impression was that he was nothing like the humans she had imagined. He seemed steady, capable, and aware of every detail around him. Still, she reminded herself not to be fooled. Humans had a way of hiding their intentions. "Greetings," Ethan said, his voice deep but steady. "I am Captain Ethan Cross, United Earth Defense Force. We come in peace." Liara inclined her head slightly. "I am Liara of Zifara. You are expected, but understand this. Our trust must be earned, not given." Ethan nodded. "I understand. We are here to cooperate, not impose." Liara studied him for a long moment. He was human, yes, but there was something in his calm demeanor that made her hesitate. Perhaps this human was different, perhaps he could be trusted. Their formal greetings were interrupted by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed across the city, and the hum of energy barriers intensified. Liara's heart quickened, though she kept her face expressionless. "Rogue mercenary ships entering orbit," the technician shouted. "They are armed and approaching fast." Liara's eyes narrowed. She had anticipated diplomatic challenges, but this was something else entirely. She turned to Ethan. "It seems our meeting will be delayed." Ethan did not flinch. "We're trained for emergencies. Let's protect the civilians first." Without waiting for further instructions, Liara and Ethan moved to the city's defense center. Alarms blared, red and orange lights flickering across the walls. Soldiers and technicians scrambled to prepare energy shields and weapons. Liara's mind raced, calculating the threat, planning countermeasures. Ethan's presence beside her was steady, a calm anchor in the chaos. The mercenaries' ships emerged from the dark expanse of space, jagged and aggressive in design. They fired energy blasts toward the city, forcing the Zifaran defenders to respond immediately. Liara's hands moved over the control panels, activating shields and redirecting defensive turrets. Beside her, Ethan coordinated human units, guiding them through a complex pattern of maneuvers to protect civilians. Liara watched him carefully. Unlike some humans she had heard about, Ethan did not act recklessly. Every command he gave was precise. Every decision considered both safety and strategy. Slowly, a grudging respect began to form within her. Perhaps humans were not entirely the creatures of chaos she had imagined. Amid the battle, a small group of children became trapped in a collapsing corridor. Liara's instincts told her to rescue them herself, but Ethan spoke first. "We can save them together. Trust me." Liara hesitated. Trust, a foreign concept when it came to humans, but the urgency of the moment left no room for doubt. She followed Ethan into the corridor, dodging falling debris and navigating through smoke and heat. They reached the children, and Ethan gently lifted the smallest one, shielding them with his body. Liara guided the others toward safety. When they emerged, the children safe and unharmed, Liara felt an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. She had witnessed the humans' courage firsthand, not for honor or glory, but to protect life. It was admirable. The battle continued for hours, but eventually the mercenaries retreated. Zifara's city had been damaged, but the civilians were safe. Liara looked around at the aftermath, broken structures, scorched walls, but no lives lost, and realized that humans, at least this one human, could indeed be an ally. Ethan approached her, wiping sweat from his brow. "The city is safe for now thanks to your leadership," he said with genuine respect. Liara met his gaze. "You performed well, perhaps. There is more to humans than I understood." Ethan smiled faintly. "Perhaps, and perhaps there is more to Zifarans than humans know. We can learn from each other." Liara said nothing, but inside a seed of curiosity began to grow. She had come to distrust humans, to believe they were too unpredictable to be allies. Yet here was one who had shown bravery, intelligence, and care. Perhaps, just perhaps, humans could be trusted, not blindly but enough to work together. As night fell over Zifara, the city lights flickered like stars below. Liara stood on the observation platform once more, Ethan at her side. The stars above seemed closer than ever, a reminder that the galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of possibilities. Liara's mind wandered. She had been trained to rely only on herself and her people, yet for the first time she wondered if trust, tentative, careful trust, could bridge the gap between species. Ethan looked at her. "Rest now. Tomorrow we will begin to plan a better defense, together." Liara nodded, though her expression remained composed. She did not yet know if she was ready to fully trust this human, but she felt something new, a flicker of hope, a sense that perhaps unity could bring strength. Not weakness, for now the battle was over. But the real challenge had only begun. Liara had faced a human in the heat of chaos and survived. She had witnessed courage in a way she had never imagined. And deep down, she knew that the coming days would test not only their skills but their ability to understand each other across the divide of species. Above the city, Zifara's twin moons reflected on the crystal towers, bathing the land in soft silver light. Liara took a deep breath. She was ready to face the unknown, ready to challenge her own beliefs, and perhaps, just perhaps, she was ready to see what humans, and this human, Ethan, could truly offer. The galaxy was vast, the future uncertain, but for the first time in her life, Liara felt that perhaps the future could be shared, not feared. The sun rose over Zifara's crystal towers, scattering light like diamonds across the city. Liara stood on the balcony of her quarters, watching the streets below. Civilians moved cautiously among repair crews, rebuilding what the mercenary attack had destroyed. Despite the calm morning, Liara's mind was restless. She could not stop thinking about Captain Ethan Cross, the human who had saved lives during the attack. Her people valued caution above all. Trust was earned, and humans, by their very nature, were considered reckless. Yet Ethan had shown courage, intelligence, and concern for others. Liara was reluctant to admit it, but she was curious. Perhaps this human was different. Perhaps he could be trusted. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. "Enter," she said, her voice calm. Ethan stepped inside, carrying a datapad and a small bag. "Good morning, Liara. I hope you slept well." Liara raised an eyebrow. "Sleep is not a priority for me, Captain. But I managed." Ethan smiled faintly. "I've been reviewing our plans for the city's defense and the upcoming negotiations. I also have a suggestion, one that may test both our abilities and our willingness to work together." Liara crossed her arms. "Go on." He opened the datapad, projecting a holographic image of a large simulation chamber. "This is the Alliance test facility. It is used for both combat training and problem-solving exercises. The simulation will test our ability to work together, handle stress, and make decisions under pressure." Liara's eyes narrowed. "You want to test me?" Ethan shook his head. "Not just you, us. This is about trust, coordination, and understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses. If we are to protect Zifara and your people, we need to learn how to operate together." Liara considered his words. A part of her resisted. Humans were unpredictable. To rely on one, even in a controlled simulation, was dangerous. But another part of her, curious, cautious, but intrigued, felt a pull she could not explain. She finally said, "Very well. We will participate. But know this, if I find your methods reckless, I will act without you." Ethan nodded. "Understood. I would expect nothing less." The simulation chamber was massive, a dome of shifting holographic landscapes. Mountains, cities, forests, and alien terrains appeared and disappeared with the flick of a command. Liara's senses sharpened as she stepped inside, taking in every detail. This was not just a test of physical skill. It was a test of mind, strategy, and character. The first scenario appeared, a collapsing city under threat from an unknown alien force. Civilians were trapped and time was limited. Liara immediately took command, directing holographic units to evacuate the people and create safe corridors. Ethan, observing her approach, suggested adjustments, shorter evacuation routes, coordinated energy shields, and calculated diversions to distract the attackers. At first, Liara bristled. Humans often underestimated precision, relying too much on intuition rather than calculation. But as she followed his suggestions, she noticed something important. Ethan's choices reduced risk, protected more civilians, and demonstrated a clear understanding of strategy. "You are efficient," she admitted quietly, almost to herself. Ethan glanced at her, eyes calm but observant. "Efficiency is important, yes, but so is adaptability. Plans fail. We must adapt." The simulation shifted to a more dangerous scenario, a narrow canyon under heavy bombardment, with civilians stranded on ledges. Liara prepared to leap into action herself, but Ethan placed a hand on her arm. "Wait, let's consider the safest path. Our priority is life, not heroism." Liara hesitated, then followed his lead. Together, they guided the civilians through the canyon, dodging falling rocks and energy blasts. For the first time, she felt a strange sense of partnership. It was uncomfortable, unfamiliar, but effective. As the simulation progressed, the scenarios became more complex. They faced moral dilemmas, whether to save a small group of civilians immediately or risk time to save a larger population, whether to sacrifice resources to protect certain areas, or focus on strategic points. Each decision required communication, trust, and understanding. Ethan remained calm under every challenge. Liara, while skilled and intelligent, noticed how his human perspective often added a different layer to her own calculations. He considered emotions, instincts, and the unpredictable nature of living beings, not just the efficiency of strategy. At one point, the simulation presented a scenario where Liara and Ethan were separated by an energy barrier, with time running out. She had to decide whether to attempt a risky bypass or wait for Ethan to find another path. Liara's instinct was to act alone, but she paused, thinking of his earlier lessons. Carefully, she coordinated with Ethan remotely, combining her precise calculations with his adaptive approach. Together, they completed the scenario successfully. When the simulation ended, the chamber's holograms faded, leaving the two of them standing in silence. Liara, for the first time, felt something she had rarely experienced: trust. Not complete trust, but a cautious willingness to rely on another being. "You performed well," Ethan said, voice calm but approving. "You adapted. You trusted. That is more important than winning alone." Liara met his gaze, expression composed. "Perhaps humans are not as reckless as my people believe. Perhaps there is value in partnership." Ethan nodded. "There is strength in cooperation. Alone we are limited. Together we can achieve far more." The training continued for several days. Each exercise tested their communication, strategy, and instincts. Liara began to notice subtle traits in Ethan: his patience, his respect for boundaries, and his ability to inspire confidence in others. These were qualities she had been taught to value in her own species but never expected to see in a human. One evening, after a particularly challenging scenario involving multiple enemy factions and civilian groups, Liara sat quietly in the simulation chamber. Ethan approached, holding 2 cups of a hot drink native to Zifara. He offered one to her. "Drink," he said simply. "You have earned it." Liara took it, their fingers brushing briefly. She looked at him, studying his calm, unwavering expression. For the first time, she allowed herself a thought she had never entertained. Could humans and Zephyrans truly work together? Could they truly trust one another? Ethan spoke, breaking the silence. "Liara, I know your people have doubts about humans, and I understand your caution. But I want you to know something. My loyalty is earned through actions, not words. And I choose to act with integrity for your people and mine." Liara studied him carefully. There was no arrogance in his words, only sincerity. Slowly, she realized that this human was not reckless, not untrustworthy. He was different. Brave, yes, but also thoughtful, careful, and principled. Perhaps this human could be more than an ally. Perhaps he could be a bridge between their species. The final test came unexpectedly. A sudden alert signaled an incoming threat. Rogue mercenaries were attacking a small outpost near the city. It was a real-world test, not a simulation. Liara and Ethan were immediately dispatched to coordinate the defense. The outpost was under heavy fire. Explosions rocked the area and panic spread among the troops. Liara's first instinct was to lead a direct assault, but Ethan suggested a different approach. Create a diversion to draw the mercenaries away while evacuating the civilians. Liara hesitated. The plan was risky, relying on timing and coordination. But she trusted him. She gave the orders, and together, they executed the maneuver. Ethan personally led the diversion, drawing enemy fire away from the civilians, while Liara guided the evacuation with precision. By the time the attack ended, the outpost was saved and casualties were minimal. Liara stood amidst the chaos, breathing heavily, her armor scorched and damaged. She looked at Ethan, who returned her gaze, unflinching. "You did well," she said quietly. "Perhaps. Humans are capable of more than I believed." Ethan smiled faintly. "And perhaps Zifferans are capable of adapting to new allies." For the first time, Liara allowed herself to feel something she had long suppressed. Hope. Hope that humans and Zifferans could work together, learn from each other, and face the challenges of the galaxy united. As they returned to the city, Liara reflected on the lessons of the past days. Trust was not easy, especially between species. But through action, courage, and shared purpose, it was possible. And perhaps, she thought quietly, she was beginning to understand what it truly meant to unite with a human. The stars shone above Zifara that night, distant and vast, yet not as unreachable as Liara once believed. With Ethan by her side, she felt that the impossible might be possible, and that the future could be brighter if humans and Zifferans stood together. The days following the successful defense of the outpost were filled with preparation. Zyphera's leaders, impressed by the coordination between humans and Zifferans, insisted on strengthening the alliance. Liara and Ethan were now officially co-leaders in planning the city's defense and coordinating joint missions. For Liara, this meant spending more time with Ethan than she had ever spent with another human, or even most of her own people. At first, she maintained her distance, observing him carefully. She wanted to understand his mind, his strategies, his weaknesses, but the longer they worked together, the more she noticed traits that were impossible to ignore. Ethan was disciplined, yes, but also compassionate. He considered the well-being of every soldier and civilian, balancing efficiency with empathy. He listened, he learned, and he adapted. These qualities, so different from the reckless humans of legend, made her uneasy, but intrigued. One morning they were assigned a reconnaissance mission outside the city. Reports suggested that mercenary forces had established a hidden base in the mountains nearby. The mission was dangerous but vital. Liara prepared her equipment meticulously, checking her armor and weapons, while Ethan reviewed the map and communicated with their units. "You are unusually quiet," Ethan said, glancing at her as they moved through the transport corridor. "You've been thinking a lot lately, haven't you?" Liara kept her expression neutral. "I am considering all possibilities. That is my duty." Ethan nodded as if he understood more than she intended. Sometimes considering possibilities means trusting others, even humans. Liara's eyes flickered toward him. His words were simple, yet they carried weight. She did not reply, but she felt a strange warmth in her chest, one she had not expected to feel. The terrain outside the city was rugged, with jagged rocks and narrow passes. The mercenaries had used the natural formations to their advantage, making the reconnaissance mission treacherous. Liara led the way, scanning for traps and ambush points. Ethan followed closely, analyzing the situation and offering strategic suggestions. As they advanced, they came across a mercenary patrol. Liara readied her weapon, prepared to engage, but Ethan raised a hand. "Wait, let's observe first." She hesitated but obeyed. Together they watched the patrol, noting their numbers, positions, and routines. Ethan's calculations allowed them to bypass the enemies without a single shot fired. Liara realized that his patience and careful observation had saved them both from unnecessary risk. Impressive, she said quietly once they were safely past. Your patience. It is unlike most humans I know. Ethan smiled faintly. Humans are more than stories and legends. Some of us learn from experience, just as you do. For a moment, Liara allowed herself to feel a small flicker of respect. Not the cautious respect she had shown before, but something more personal. She was beginning to see Ethan not just as a human, but as an equal. The mission continued deeper into enemy territory. The air was tense, each shadow a potential threat. Suddenly, a trap was triggered. An energy net shot up from the ground, ensnaring Liara. She struggled, but the net was strong, powered by alien technology she had not seen before. Ethan reacted instantly. He sprinted forward, dodging enemy fire, and cut the net with precise strikes. Are you all right? He asked, his voice steady but concerned. Liara freed herself, brushing off debris. I am, thanks to you. Ethan shrugged modestly. We are partners. I cannot allow you to be harmed if I can help it. Liara's heart beat faster, not from fear but from an unfamiliar feeling she could not name. For the first time, she felt a personal connection forming, one built not on duty or protocol but on shared danger and mutual trust. The deeper they went, the more challenging the mission became. They encountered traps, ambushes, and complex mazes of alien machinery. Liara's mind was sharp, but Ethan's adaptability complemented her strategy perfectly. Together, they solved problems that neither could have handled alone. During a tense moment, Ethan noticed a series of unstable energy conduits above their path. He warned Liara, and they carefully maneuvered around the danger. At one point, a misstep caused a small explosion nearby, throwing them off balance. Ethan reached out instinctively, catching her before she fell. Liara froze, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. Her instinct was to pull away, to maintain the professional distance she always upheld. But something inside her hesitated. She did not move. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the safety and reassurance his presence offered. After the explosion, they continued silently, side by side. Words were unnecessary. Their actions spoke louder. Synchronization, trust, and understanding that had developed over days of training and missions. Liara realized that she had come to rely on him, not blindly but with purpose. By the time they reached the mercenary base, night had fallen. The hidden structure was a labyrinth of corridors and security systems. Liara surveyed the entrance, her mind calculating the risks. Ethan, standing beside her, offered suggestions to disable security measures without alerting the enemy. They moved through the base, silent and precise. When they encountered a group of mercenaries, they did not rush into combat. Instead, they coordinated carefully, using distraction, strategy, and timing to neutralize the threat. Liara could not deny that Ethan's presence had made her more effective. Together, they were stronger than they could be alone. In a central control room, they discovered critical intelligence, maps of enemy movements, weapon caches, and plans for future attacks. Liara examined the data while Ethan guarded the entrance. She could see his vigilance, his focus, and his unwavering determination to protect not only her but the mission. You are extraordinary, she admitted softly, almost to herself. Ethan turned, his eyes meeting hers. So are you, Liara. We make a good team. For the first time, Liara allowed herself a small smile. The words felt right. She did not fully understand why she felt this way. But she knew one thing: she trusted him. Not completely yet, but enough to rely on his judgment and his courage. The return journey was tense but uneventful. The data they had gathered would allow Zafara's leaders to anticipate mercenary attacks and protect their citizens. Liara and Ethan shared a quiet moment, looking out at the stars as the transport glided toward the city. Do you ever wonder, Ethan said quietly, if our species could truly work together beyond this mission, beyond survival? Liara's eyes met his. I have wondered, she admitted. I have always believed humans to be reckless, untrustworthy. But you are different. You have shown me courage, intelligence, and care. Perhaps we are capable of more than I imagined. Ethan nodded. That is all I ask. That you see humans for what we can be, not only for what we are assumed to be. Liara remained silent, but inside, her thoughts swirled. She had never allowed herself to consider such possibilities. She had always believed that relying on a human was a risk, yet now she felt that risk was worth taking. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where humans and Zifferans could fight side by side, learn from one another, and perhaps even trust one another completely. Back in the city, the leaders of Zephyra were briefed on the mission's success. Liara presented the intelligence and outlined a strategic plan to counter the mercenaries' movements. Ethan provided input, suggesting improvements based on human tactical approaches. The combination of their perspectives impressed everyone in the room. After the briefing, Liara and Ethan walked together through the quiet city streets. The moonlight reflected off the crystal towers, casting long, shimmering shadows. Liara spoke softly, almost to herself. "I did not expect to feel connected to a human." Ethan glanced at her, a small smile on his lips. Connection does not always come easily, but when it does, it can make us stronger. "You have learned that today," Liara nodded. She did not yet fully understand the bond forming between them, but she felt it growing stronger. Courage, trust, understanding. These were not limited to species. They were universal. And with Ethan by her side, she felt that together, they could face challenges no one could face alone. As they looked up at the stars, Liara realized that her mission had changed. It was no longer only about defending Zephyra. It was about learning to trust, learning to unite, and learning that sometimes the greatest strength came from unexpected alliances. With the galaxy full of danger and uncertainty, Liara finally understood that a human could be more than a stranger. He could be a partner, a friend, and perhaps a guide into a future where Zephyrians and humans could stand together, stronger than ever. And for the first time, Liara allowed herself to hope. Zephyra had never faced such a threat. The mercenary fleet, larger and more organized than before, descended upon the capital city. Their ships blotted out the twin suns, casting long shadows over the crystalline towers. Alarms blared, energy shields flared, and the air was thick with tension. Liara stood at the command center, surrounded by Zephyran officers and human soldiers. Her violet eyes scanned the holographic display, noting the enemy positions, their weapon types, and projected attack routes. Beside her, Ethan analyzed the same information, offering suggestions with calm precision. "We can hold them back at the perimeter," Ethan said, "but we need to protect the civilians first." "That is our priority," Liara nodded. "Agreed. We will split forces. Half to defend the city's core, half to evacuate civilians. We move on my command." The first wave of mercenaries struck suddenly, firing energy cannons that tore through the outer defenses. The combined forces of humans and Zephyrians fought back fiercely. Liara coordinated Zephyran energy turrets while Ethan led human units in strategic counterattacks. Explosions shook the city, and debris rained from above. Civilians screamed, running for cover. Liara's heart pounded, but she forced herself to focus. Every decision mattered. Every command could save or cost lives. At one point, a building collapsed, trapping dozens of civilians inside. Liara prepared to lead a rescue, but Ethan stepped forward. "I'll go with you," he said. "We do this together." Liara hesitated. Relying on a human in the heat of battle was risky. Yet she nodded. Together they navigated the wreckage, using their combined skills to free the trapped civilians. Ethan shielded them from falling debris while Liara used her strength and agility to lift obstacles. Once the civilians were safe, they were ambushed by a mercenary strike team. Liara fought with precision, her movements fluid and deadly, while Ethan provided cover, his accuracy unmatched. They moved as one, each anticipating the other's actions. For the first time, Liara realized that their bond was more than strategy. It was instinctive trust. The battle raged across the city. Mercenary ships breached the outer defenses, forcing Liara and Ethan to take control of the city's central energy core. They knew that losing it would mean the city's destruction. Together they activated defensive protocols, redirecting energy to shields and creating traps for the intruders. During a critical moment, Liara was cornered by multiple enemies. She fought valiantly but was overwhelmed. Ethan appeared, dodging blasts and cutting through the attackers with unmatched precision. He extended a hand, pulling her out of danger. "You saved me," Liara said, breathing heavily. "No," Ethan replied. "We saved each other." Liara's mind raced. She had always believed that relying on a human was a weakness, yet here in the heat of battle, their combined skills, trust, and courage were the city's greatest defense. She realized that unity was not vulnerability, it was strength. The final wave of mercenaries pushed toward the energy core. Liara and Ethan coordinated the defense with flawless timing. Civilians were evacuated, soldiers positioned strategically, and the enemy funneled into traps. One by one, the mercenary ships were destroyed or driven back. When the last ship exploded in the sky above, silence fell over the city. Smoke and dust filled the streets, but the citizens were alive. Zifara had survived thanks to courage, strategy, and the bond between a human and a Zifaran. Liara stood on the central tower, watching the skies clear. Ethan joined her, his armor scorched but his expression calm. "You were magnificent," he said simply. Liara looked at him, her voice quiet but firm. "So were you. I underestimated humans. You have shown me that trust can be a strength." Ethan smiled faintly. "We can face anything together. That is what I have learned from you as well." For the first time, Liara allowed herself to fully acknowledge the bond she had formed. It was no longer just strategy or duty, it was respect, trust, and perhaps something more. In the midst of destruction and chaos, she had discovered an unexpected truth. Courage and loyalty transcended species, and unity could conquer even the greatest threats. As night fell, the city began to recover. The citizens, inspired by the defense, celebrated quietly, their spirits lifted by the bravery they had witnessed. Liara and Ethan remained on the tower, looking out over Zifara. "The galaxy is dangerous," Liara said softly, "but perhaps with humans and Zifarans united we can face what comes next." Ethan nodded. "Together we are stronger than we ever were alone." Liara allowed herself a small smile. For the first time, she was not just a warrior of Zifara. She was part of something larger, something hopeful. And at her side stood a human who had shown her that trust, courage, and unity could change the future. The stars above seemed brighter than ever, a promise of challenges yet to come, and a reminder that together they could face anything. The city of Zifara was quiet in the early morning light, a fragile calm after the storm. Civilians emerged from shelters, curious and cautious, to see the damage repaired and the streets slowly returning to normal. Liara walked among them, her armor polished but bearing the scars of battle. She had faced her fears, confronted her prejudices, and survived alongside a human she had once doubted. Ethan walked beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. Together, they inspected the city's defenses, offering advice and ensuring that all remaining threats were neutralized. Their partnership had become seamless. Words were often unnecessary, their understanding instinctive. The city council gathered in the central hall to formally acknowledge the human's contribution. Liara stood at the front, presenting the defense plan and intelligence gathered during the missions. She spoke with authority, her voice clear and unwavering. "Today we have seen the value of unity," she said. "We have seen that courage, loyalty, and strategy know no species. Humans have proven themselves allies in our time of need. I propose that we formalize this alliance, not as a temporary measure but as a lasting partnership." The council murmured, some hesitant, some approving. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm and respectful. "Zifara has shown humanity what it means to be disciplined, wise, and courageous. Together we can protect not only this planet but the galaxy itself. This alliance is the beginning of a new future." The council members exchanged glances and finally a vote was held. The decision was unanimous. Humans and Zifarans would work together, sharing knowledge, skills, and strategies. The galaxy had become smaller, and threats less insurmountable because two species had chosen to unite. In the days that followed, the city began a transformation. Humans and Zifarans trained together, combining technology, strategy, and combat techniques. Joint exercises strengthened both species, fostering understanding, respect, and cooperation. Civilians, once fearful of outsiders, watched as soldiers from two worlds worked side by side to protect them. Liara found herself spending more time with Ethan outside of missions. They shared conversations about their worlds, cultures, and beliefs. She discovered that his calm demeanor was not a facade, but a reflection of experience and thoughtfulness. In turn, Ethan admired her intellect, her courage, and her ability to balance duty with compassion. One evening, as the twin moons reflected off the crystal towers, Liara and Ethan stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The air was cool and the city's lights sparkled like stars below. "You have changed my perception," Liara said softly. "I came to distrust humans, believing they were reckless and unreliable. but you have shown me that trust can be earned, and that unity can be a strength. Ethan smiled faintly. And you have shown me that courage, wisdom, and leadership can take many forms. Together we can face anything. Liara nodded. For the first time, she felt free to believe in the future. Not just for Zafara, not just for humans, but for both species. The bond she had formed with Ethan was more than strategic. It was a bridge between two civilizations, a symbol of hope and strength. Weeks passed, and the alliance grew stronger. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, and combined research initiatives flourished. Zafara's citizens began to see humans not as strangers or threats, but as allies and friends. Likewise, humans learned to respect Zafara's discipline, wisdom, and unique perspective. Liara and Ethan continued to lead, their partnership now an example for others. Through countless missions, exercises, and challenges, they proved that unity was more than a concept. It was action, courage, and trust in the face of uncertainty. One day, standing together on the edge of the city, looking out at the stars, Liara spoke again. The galaxy is vast and full of unknown dangers, she said. But I am no longer afraid to face it, not alone and not with distrust. Humans and Zypherans can face anything together. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder gently. And we will. Together. Liara allowed herself a smile, genuine and warm. She had come to Zifara believing that uniting with a human was risky, even foolish. Now she knew it was the right choice. Courage, loyalty, and trust were not limited by species, they were universal. And in that truth she found hope, strength, and a future worth fighting for. Above the city, the stars shone bright, reflecting off the crystal towers. Below them, Zafara and humanity had taken the first steps toward a new era, one of cooperation, understanding, and unity, and Liara, once reluctant to trust, stood ready to face whatever came next, side by side with a human who had shown her the power of courage, Integ.